is gonna be time before you know it for me to be hanging out with family. So I gotta, get a little cigar in before. And I figured that if I'm by myself, smoking a cigar, a good idea, a good activity to do while you're by yourself smoking a cigar is record a good old noise with Ivan. You know what I'm talking about. Go ahead and roll the intro. The first thing that I listened to, because what I did was, it's not something I do often. I remember as a child just searching Bandcamp for new releases for whatever subgenre I thought that was going to be like the next big thing. And even just before I started doing this, I think, searching for searching for things through Bandcamp. The Bandcamp subgenres are a really easy way to, or I don't know if it's really easy. It seems more complicated because you're just looking at all these album covers and you're like, well, which one do I click on? I don't want to click on this one just because I like the cover, But the very first thing that you see on there are two artists that I think we're all pretty familiar with. If you're familiar with Gates of Hypnos, Angel B, formerly known as Worker B, and Sebastian Toom with oh goodness. Yeah, the two most powerful warriors are patience and time. And it seems like, it's a split. So it seems like, and you've got two characters on the cover, so it kind of seems like that's Sebastian Toom and Angel B. Whenever you have a split and there's two characters on the cover. I think the Sebastian Toom Sado Rituals splits were like that, which those are fantastic. But this is also fantastic. I remember doing that kind of duo split look on the cover of the first Shame Volume 1 with Roman Shower. I only ever put out Volume 3, Sleeping Thulu, formerly known as Neff. I had another Gore Noise artist lined up for the second one, PNOTB, and another Gore Noise artist for doing the second Shame, B-Wall. And it's Jollibee themed noise walls from Manila. I believe the bio says, I work hard at Jollibee so that you can have delicious food. And they're noise walls. They're Jollibee themed noise walls. You can't really complain. They're not 2019. Everything's from 2019, so something must have happened to them. I don't know how I found it on the main page, because I thought it was like the most popular noise walls, right? Most played, most recent, most purchased. I feel like that's how Bandcamp normally does it. Maybe that's not what I had it set to. B-Wall pops up with Late to Work, and it's got a picture of... I always put the pictures up. Late to Work is the first one that popped up. My favorite dish if I remember correctly, at Jollibee was the palabok. But so I listened to that. That was very harsh. The Jollibee hot dog was very, very harsh too. The high frequencies in that one are just killer. Pineapple Juice. That was a nice ambient noise wall. That was a cool, easy one, and two tracks as well. So you had. It's always nice to put on one like 45-minute track and then another 45-minute track. They might even be 15 minutes, and then you go, whoa. When you just get that change during the track change, you go, whoa. It always feels great. I've been in that zone lately, just to where I like to sit around and listen to them. But I have been recently, I'm not going to talk about any of that stuff today, but I've been recently having a phase with Chaotic, like Disfigured Robot Child and stuff. I've been listening through everything that he's done. I'm like 5 or 6 albums in, so I don't know if I'm going to end up getting through the whole Disfigured Robot Child discography. I know a ton of his stuff is not on, like, One of my favorite releases by him is the Pain Based Lifeform split, but I think it is anyway. But it's not on Rate Your Music. There's a handful of stuff that just of his stuff that just isn't there, and I don't think Pain Based Lifeform is on Rate Your Music anyway. So even if I wanted to upload that, I don't know that I could. I'm just not as confident adding artists. I've put a few handful of releases on Rate Your Music before. There's an album called Kaze that was up there, and I think this legitimately is one of the more popular. I think it's the latest release off of Psalm 88. I'm obviously familiar with Psalm 88. My favorite track on Slavery was called Psalm 88, and it was just me singing through Psalm 88. And I put music to it, and I just used the weakest voice I possibly could. I know my mom hates that song because she's like, "You are not a good singer," and I was like, the point of it is to sing pretty poorly. But that if that makes you uncomfortable and you're not able to, sometimes the discomfort. I'm sure, especially with your son, kind of making a fool of himself. That's something that could kind of get to you. So this might be why my mom doesn't like it. But I love that track. And I always I feel like it's, I can't believe I did that, So I like it, but there's a record label called Psalm 88 too. They do really cool looking tapes. This is a great release. I feel like it gets a lot more appreciation than Kaze is what I'm talking about again. I feel like it gets a lot more appreciation than a lot of things that give you just as much value. And like I said, it's a great looking cover. Psalm 88 does not cease to have great looking covers, and they put out like real short run cassettes and short cassettes. That was there was 9-minute tracks each. So it's two 9-minute is ambient noise walls, which is just a nice listen. And one thing you'll notice with this release that is valuable with a lot of ambient noise walls specifically, is that the noise, the static, there is a noise wall, right? That portion has only micro variations and does not develop throughout the piece. It does not only contain an ambient noise wall, though, it contains actual ambiance around it. There's air around it. There's movement around it. There's more than the noise. It's not that the noise is moving, but there's more that is moving. So you're appreciating the noise wall, even though there is some movement. It's really kind of a workaround. Like, yeah, we like harsh noise wall and we like traditional harsh noise wall, and then we don't really want it changing, even though we don't really want it changing. It isn't the best when you have it changing. We kind of like a developing harsh noise wall is kind of a whole different thing. It's not pure harsh noise wall. But that somehow, when you have movement around the noise wall, as opposed to the noise wall itself moving, that has a lot of benefit, because it doesn't attract your attention. It doesn't jolt you. It can't bring you out of the kind of trance that a noise wall puts you in general. Another character, Silver Dove and Pinniped, both have a split. I haven't listened to it, so I'm not going to talk about it, but In Your Light Mine Burns Bright Again, that's another one of the things that is top ambient noise walls. I was checking that on Christmas too. I was flipping through those on Christmas Day, and while the kids were opening gifts, I was listening to that. So I was chilling. I had a pretty good time once I put that on. I was like, it was a lot going on, but that piece really cooled me down and just allowed me to appreciate the moment. It was really good. You have to kind of secretly listen to music, though. They're like, are you jamming to some tunes right now while we're having a celebration? No. But yeah, though. That was a really good listen when I did that. And you know that I love stuff that's as soft as that. I mentioned that in the last episode. It has kind of been perfect pen and pad has been for um, any kind of study session or reading or something like that. Um, Another one came up. I also listened to the Harm Signals Theta Rituals. That I didn't find when I was looking at the main stuff, ambient noise wall. By the way, I went through most of those B wall releases are harsh noise walls, and they're kind of uncomfortable because they don't have quite as fine of textures as a lot of stuff does. They're I don't know, but well done. You might have considered it to be bland, but it's not. It's it does it so well what it does. I would implore you to go check out B Wall. The interesting thing, I don't know if I mentioned it already, but B Wall, everything that was done, it's the B Wall Bandcamp looks like a Jollibee menu. It just shows all the Jollibee foods because it's Jollibee foods that make up what the album is. It's weird because we have like modern harsh noise walls. And another crazy thing about this, if I could go on and on, the only thing that was coming out until about 2016 was like Nurse Unit releases, which was, I think, a Richard Ramirez side project. I hate it if I'm wrong about that. The only harsh noise walls were Nurse Unit for a long time. And then there was like an explosion in 2016. And in the 20s, in 2019 really blew up. Come 2020, 21, 22, these things start getting textured. These things become a whole new art form. So what we're looking at with a growing, if you think that you're seeing a growing popularity beyond a growing creation of noise walls, you're correct. These are getting more popular, getting more influential. This thing that was invented a long time ago and wildly unpopular, it has been completely revolutionized. And instead of it being something like I'm sure chaotic harsh noise has always been, instead of being something that is incomprehensible and only causes stress, we're starting to break down the genre of noise and we're starting to actually look at what makes it valuable. We're starting to use noise as if it is music notes. Made music, we've added, and tone is measured in this new way. It's a lot more complicated, but we're starting to marginalize it in a way that we can use this as opposed to just turning on machines and turning knobs. A lot of noise heads really like it to just be turning knobs. It's not just turning knobs anymore. So the difference between a lot of 2019 releases and releases in the 20s is massive. All these layers start happening. You know, it's become a harsh noise wall has become a much bigger deal. And I'm glad that I get to actually kind of, because I'm young, I haven't seen all that much stuff happen in music, but I'm glad that I get to see the development of noise music because even in my lifetime, it was not what it is now. But the positive thing about harsh or noise walls as opposed to chaotic noise is that it is measurable. There's a lot of chaotic harsh noise that I really, really like. But the good thing about noise walls is that it's measurable. You can say, oh my goodness, I love what he does here, and I can kind of tell what he's doing here because it's not just knob turning. Oh, I loved how he turned all those knobs. You don't get to appreciate it intellectually in the same way. It's almost... Noise used to be only an emotional experience, and now it is it is capable of being, of course, Bach is capable of being a intellectual experience for sure. It's also capable of being an emotional experience for sure. That's the thing about B-Wall, is that it was right there. It was right there. It was still old school harsh noise, but it's in a modern age where you didn't need it wasn't on cassette tapes. You know what I mean? So it still sounds clean, but it's not layered in order to sound. And that's the other thing. We don't naturally have that cassette sound. Cassettes are expensive. We would rather just do it on a lot of times, we would rather just do it on I know Woods Mattress is a tone head, and he's always messing with different cassette. Man, if you listen to that guy talk about cassettes, That's the reason he records on cassettes. So if you're using digital software, you have to continue to add layers and add layers. I think right now we're kind of glad we're past that point, that 2019 point. Harm signal Sado ritual split. I'll get to what I was talking about earlier. The harm signal Sado ritual split. This is obviously old. I wasn't around when this came out. It's a Gates of Hypnos release. It's been in my catalog 4 times over. I keep having to buy, because I work with a label, I keep having to buy the full discography over and over again. Harm signals I didn't know to be noise wall, and was not necessarily noise wall here, but held a noise wall for a while. It was kind of real short walls, kind of the same way I do it. I'm kind of trying to make walls now. I really like walls, so I'm trying to fit in with everybody. The same way I do it a little bit, like going for about 8 minutes and then doing a little bit of a transition, adding some things. But Harm Signals did a really good job, and that was something that I valued. And Sado Rituals was really, really great on it as well. I pretty much like most of his splits. I'm a pretty big fan of Sado Rituals in general, but sometimes he'll pull out some micro variations on a noise wall in a split, and you're like, why don't you do this on your hour and a half releases? Another reason I don't make them very long is because I don't know if you heard Famished. I liked the little beeps, the imperfections in the wall. I liked that, so I left it. But I get those beeps anytime I use, and anytime with anything I record. So I have to go in and edit it, cut that little bit of sound out, splice it together, put a multi, one of them fades where you splice the clip together and then you put a fade over both of them so it makes an X. I went to audio school. I can't remember what that's called. So I've spent a lot of time with anything that I've made recently cutting out imperfections. It wasn't as much of an issue with chaotic harsh noise, but the problem with having imperfections in a harsh noise wall, which is this the whole thing we're avoiding, right, is you go into a trance, you're enjoying it, you're in the zone, and they're perfectly timed too, and randomly timed. So I thought for Famished, Famished kind of, you're going through this experience, you feel it's a harsh noise wall, you really feel it, and you're like, and then those beeps were kind of like hiccups, so I left it there. I thought it was good. Primo was like, are you sure you want to release with these on it? And I was like, I have decided that artistically this works for what I want to go for, but I usually that's not tolerable. Usually those are not tolerable, and I'll have to learn to fix those so I don't get them anymore, or because there was a method that we would use in Pro Tools, is you would be able to highlight certain kinds of waveforms if it got to a certain level or a certain loudness in the waveform. It would highlight all those, and you could replace them with another sound. And I remember doing that for, like, if I wanted to make footsteps for doing sound design, if I wanted to make footsteps, I would go teet 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 teet, or like watch the movie go, and then just make one footstep crunch, with cornstarch. I think I was using at the time to make a little footstep crunch, and then I would use that to every place that I clap, replace it with that crunch, and it worked wonderfully. So I've been thinking about like trying to get those beeps out, but I probably should get a new computer, because this computer that I record Noise with Ivan on is 2024. It just doesn't have a lot of RAM. I have a 2019 MacBook as well. That has a lot of RAM. So I use Pro Tools on that 2019 MacBook, but that's gotten old. It has really gotten old, and it really has a hard time running, and I think that might be the reason for... I don't remember having those imperfections in my recordings on my 24 MacBook. So anyway, I need to polish up my skills, get some real equipment, get in a real studio, listen to Slavery. Speaking of State of Rituals, he has a really good um, split with Root Cellar. Root Cellar, I listened through the whole discography because I'd first come across it. There was an album on the Gates of Hypnos discography, the same way I came across the Harm Signal State of Ritual split, that I went ahead and listened to and was very good. A release called Magnetic Fields that's on Gates of Hypnos, and it was really good. Very minimalistic. I'm not going to say it's lowercase. It's not lowercase, but I don't want you having the idea that it's a traditional harsh noise wall or traditional ambient noise wall. It's definitely an ambient noise wall, but the sound is minimalistic. It's not full band by any means. It's speckling, but it has panning, so you go. It just, ooh, it works perfectly. You should listen to Magnetic Fields. It takes 5 seconds to go and just get a little taste of it. So yeah, that's one of my favorite releases that I've heard in a while. Root Cellar in general, I like the themes, I like the art, I like the walls. And I asked Tremo, because it was on his label, I said, who's Root Cellar? And does he still do anything? And he said he died a few years back of suicide. He was schizophrenic and left his wife and kid and decided he was transgender, and then committed suicide shortly after that. Maybe, and I didn't know also he did Submachine Gun and Monolithic Torment. Monolithic Torment is possibly more representative of his overall work. I think Root Cellar, again, was back in 2019 or something like that. Root Cellar is an older project, and Monolithic Torment took up a little bit more of his time. There's many more Monolithic Torment releases. I thought almost all the Root Cellar releases were good. I listened to most of them, but I became a huge fan after hearing Magnetic Fields by Root Cellar, and just started listening through, and had just the best time. I was very eaten up to know that was the way that he went, and that he went too. I'm so used to if I like somebody's walls or I like somebody's noise, I say, "Hey, I like your noise," and then we're friends, and then they're on my label, or I'm doing a collab with them or something like that. Then I can mix for them or something like, you make friends with people whose music you like. That's the way this works when you're a noise fan. If you're a noise fan, you're a noise producer. Not this time. Whatever's going on, I don't think that your family is hurting. I want to say that. I don't think your family is the thing that's hurting you. Most likely, in most instances. There's been a lot more than that has had a lot of weight on my heart recently. I'm very blessed to have a really wonderful family. Rest in peace, Monolithic Torment. Came into making music with non-really noise music, representing the gospel through my music, and I want that to continue to be my purpose in music. I just really enjoy noise. So yeah, please be in prayer for his family and anyone in his position. Godspeed.